All right. Let's get this. Yeah, I'll give it a few minutes. I'm just gonna hang out and make sure everything's working. So if you are seeing this at any point, just bear with me as I put all this together. All right. Watch the magic happen. So in the last few attempts to kick this stream off have been plagued by technical issues, mostly coming from the microphone connection. I'm still not entirely sure what the issue is, but using our using the little app that comes with this Shure mic seems to be helping. I'm not exactly sure yet, but we'll see. If the sound goes off, you may see me toss my headphones across the room and storm out in frustration. All right. But at the 12th hour, the noon hour, I'll go ahead and start. I don't have any viewers anyway. Here, getting everything set up. Dun, dun, I think we are good to go. Let's see. Welcome to the sing-along hour. I think I used all my paper yesterday. I sure did. That's okay. I'll use the board. All right. So let's see. I think I'm actually ready. All right, we'll kick things off a little bit early. And all right. Well, maybe not. Give it a couple minutes. I worry that turning this off will reset something, but we seem to be doing all right. I can switch between scenes. Oh, that's magnificent. I can change the transition. Oh, this is wonderful. How exciting. Mm-mm-mm. Oh, wow. Magic. All right. Welcome to the official inaugural stream of the Together We Write live stream, where every week, sometimes a couple times a week, we'll look at various forms of professional writing and see and try to unpack it a little bit, explain it. The intention for this is to just offer a little bit more support, guidance, feedback on the types of writing that we're doing here on the University of Wisconsin Green Bay campus. Speaking of which, my name is Chris Berzicki, assistant professor in English and Humanities. I teach a bunch of writing courses as well as other types of courses here on campus. Um, so we're going to cover note to self, make sure that your notifications are turned off prior to starting your stream. But I appreciate Microsoft giving me that reminder. This stream is supported by an awesome teaching enhancement grant provided to me by Cattle, our teaching technologists here on campus. So I'm very grateful for that. this would not be possible without that support. Also, appreciative of the campus in general for just making this possible. What can I say? So, the purpose of this podcast stream is to talk about writing, particularly forms of professional writing, business writing, technical writing. Part of our professional and technical writing emphasis with the BFA Writing and Applied Arts program here at UWGB. Pretty unique. I'm doing informal survey of other programs around campus, and it's a very unique program that there are plenty of creative writing programs out there that have professional writing components, but very few have an emphasis that's this um, couched in this way. Our professional writing, as we're developing it, I'm pretty excited to see that our professional writing and technical writing emphases, it's one emphasis, it's very much ingrained in the discipline of creative writing in a number of ways. All right, but that's enough about that. I love the program. I'm uh, thrilled to be a part of it. Anyway, enough of that. All right, let's go. Today we're talking about brochures. Okay, brochures. You know them, you love them. Maybe you don't even pay attention to them, but they're very much a very real. Oh, the chroma is picking up the green. Unfortunately, most of our brochures here on campus also include the green because it's the campus school colors. So we'll be having a few of these issues, I'm sure, in this series. All right, so let's take a look at our brochures here. So we've got this one, stress. So we have these around campus, area businesses, schools, apartment buildings. Let's think about the brochure itself real quick. I'm going to go ahead and look. I put together a PowerPoint. That means it's legit, right? So brochures. So we've got these little pieces of information here, and it's important to we don't often think, and especially when we inhabit so much digital space, that there's much value in something that's often an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper printed on both sides. This particular one looks like it may have been printed off someone's office or home printer, which is just fine, but folded into 3 panels, 2 sides. But why is this so? Why brochures? Why should we even be thinking about brochures as a viable way of communicating? Well, one thing, there's a number of reasons, right? Well, first of all, we can get plenty of information on a brochure. There's lots of images, there's lots of pieces of writing here. It's got some contact information. So there's a lot of information in this very practical, small, and handheld package, right? When I grab a brochure, I'm usually taking it, folding it up, throwing it in my back pocket, or putting it somewhere so I can look at it later. It isn't an app, though. You could certainly put a QR code on there for additional information. But we often forget about the power of paper, right? And almost it's a little cringe there to say that, but it is very true. We Online uses an approach that is you have to come to it. There are a number of strategies to get you to go to a particular site, go to a page or a social media channel. That's the way the strategy there is to draw you in. Whereas with print, it's very much you're pushing out in a way. Mails, using the mail, which we can throw an address on here. placing this in a holder next to your office. Um, you know, if I go to the credit union here on campus, I'm sure there are at least a dozen different types of brochures that are ready, that are there to just waiting to grab my attention so I can and pick one up. And the other interesting fact, or I shouldn't say fact, another interesting uh, survey I recently came across that, and it's not surprising that print is actually viewed as being more trustworthy. Now, that said, I have to admit that I would like to dig in a little bit deeper into that argument because, as someone who has worked in both print and digital areas, I can see that I can see why print would be perceived as more trustworthy. There's a lot of investment. It takes, you have a tangible artifact that you're holding, so there's an implication of trust there versus we are inundated by digital media, so we're not, and we, most of us are quite well aware that a lot of what we consume on those digital spaces, within those digital spaces, is not as um, not as informed as we would like. Does not have the integrity that we typically value in our resources and materials. So, but for whatever reason, and I haven't dug into this too much, but for whatever reason, print is perceived as being more valuable. Now, in my slides here, I've got a link to an organization called Two Sides. Um, so I am admittingly committing the most heinous crime of all English instructors, and that is using sources without um, vetting them sufficiently prior. So my guess is that Two Sides is involved in the print industry and they're selling it. However, so that's something I want to dig into. But so I qualify this by saying that print is perceived as more trustworthy. My guess, um, again, from someone who's worked in print as well as digital, my guess is that an interesting dynamic has happened with print where we see where we used to think, I mean, was it 20 years ago we were expecting the death of print altogether. Printing presses were closing up. The print shop I worked at, we were losing accounts. We were trying to wrestle with new color spaces and working in this digital field. Fortunately, we were on top of the game, and that print shop is still around. So, but there's also an added investment, right? It costs money to print something. Many of us come from a time when printed artifacts were also edited and reviewed, and before you spent money printing something and putting it out there in the world, you took extra precautions to make sure this is legitimate. Now, of course, there's plenty out there in print that is dubious, if not just outright BS, right? So again, print is perceived, according to this survey, as more trustworthy. So it is something that lingers, right? Has stuck with us for a very good reason. For our purposes, however, I want to consider the brochure as a form of writing that gets us thinking about writing professionally in a certain way, using certain strategies, methods, and approaches that are really important and valuable when it comes to professional writing. So, as I'm talking about brochures here, I'm also talking about resumes. I'm talking about cover letters. I'm thinking about reports and documentation and SOPs and all these types of writing that demand clear, concise communication, maybe some visuals, but thinking also about the strategies that we use to communicate facts, ideas, methods, procedures. All right. So This is a brochure. Let's start with that. So one approach I would suggest to use for a brochure, and this is used in a number of different areas. Was thinking about this. Like, where had I heard this before? And sure enough, Glenn Ross, phenomenal play. I believe it's David Mamet. Phenomenal film, which is the first place I came across it. Alec Baldwin has probably one of the most breathtaking monologues in that you'll find on stage or screen, and that includes Shakespeare. In fact, it's you could argue that it's Shakespearean in quality. It's stunning, but however, not something I'm going to spend 10 minutes. It's the content is intense. It's a phenomenal movie, phenomenal play. Check it out. Look for Alec Baldwin in here, and you'll see what I mean. So, sure enough, he's coming from Focus is a real estate company, and he comes in to shake things up, get him motivated. So he's like a motivational speaker, and he starts off talking about this. He's got a bunch of acronyms, and so unfortunately, fortunately, however you take it, in the world of business, a lot of professional writing and technical writing, a lot of fields, there are a bunch of acronyms. So this is pulled from my first encounter with it was the world of business as well. So AIDA, simply put, you start off by grabbing the attention, someone's attention, your audience's attention, your reader's attention. Where have we heard this before? Yeah, your cover letter, your novel. How are you going to grab that reader's attention? That's A, right? And so what I'll get to is I'll show you how this breaks down into a brochure. Once you grab the audience's attention, then you want to stoke that interest, really develop it. Okay, so I've got you here. So let's look at this. Let's look at our brochure here. I'm going to bump this up a little bit, even though it's fading into the background. So if you can't see this, one of these days I'm going to grab my second cam and I'll set it up so we can do a focus on this. But here's this stress, anxiety, all of these hot button issues, high blood pressure, weight loss, headaches, body pain, fatigue, all of these horrors of modern living are all crammed into this cover. So, maybe I'm walking past, I can't remember where I picked this up from, UWGB Wellness Center. So here we have this brochure. So why was this? It's probably not too hard to figure out why this was over by the Wellness Center, right? If I'm walking by, college campus is a place of stress, a place of anxiety for a great number of people. So if I were experiencing any of these things, for example, or had recently, or even not so recently, maybe I'm coming across this brochure and I'm saying, hey, I get it. This is something that's speaking to me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab this. And there's a lot of weight on that first concept, grabbing the attention. Again, just like cover letters. If you haven't grabbed my attention within a matter of seconds, I'm going to either, discard that cover letter or walk right past this brochure, right? So we start off with the attention. So I've got that, right? Next, we've got developing interest. Now, once you've got the attention, the next thing you want to do is start to build that interest. How do now that I've got your attention, maybe I'm going to dial it back a little bit and start to build your interest in our product or our event or whatever, or hiring me or interviewing me, whatever that piece of writing is. In the case of a brochure, this is usually where we find all of our information, right? This is where we find this, again, bleeding into the background. We have these different pieces of information that may help stoke your interest. So, for example, are you, this is almost asking a question, right? Are you stressed? In even fewer words. And inside, there are tips for relaxation. So, deep breathing, exercise, remove clutter. I know in preparing for this here live stream, I was getting a little bit stressed because around me is all sorts of clutter that I was not able to do anything with prior. And I like a nice, clean workspace, a nice, clean environment, especially when I'm about to do something I'm not sure if it's going to work, right? So, yes, removing clutter. I have not been able to exercise as often as I would like recently. So, yeah, this is starting to speak to me. It's generating some interest. And so far, all I'm really thinking about are these tips for relaxation, stretching, study breaks. Remember to take a lot of little breaks, 30 to 60 seconds while studying. I would not have expected that to be that short. But there's all sorts of little pieces of information, right? And on the inside cover, okay, next thing you want to do is encourage desire. So there's this on the inside cover. This one is a little bit, oh, here we go. I think I have this a little bit backwards. So my apologies to my 0 viewers. Good. No one can witness my doubling back or backpedaling here. So actually, the interest here is the question I was mentioning before. So we've got stress, and then on the inside cover, it's got this question here: feeling stressed, we can help. So this is how we're stoking that interest, right? And now we get into the desire, right? This for Alec Baldwin here, it is decision. That's how they put it. We're talking about desire, and what I mean by desire is this sort of you're stoking that interest, but you've gotten it to a point where you've primed the audience or the reader to make in Mr. Baldwin's case, make a decision, right? Or for my purposes or our purposes here, we're just encouraging desire. So what do we mean by desire? It's really more of a stronger form of interest, right? It's a form of interest that is primed for a follow-up action, right? It's almost like this hunger, right? I was hungry an hour ago and I desired sustenance, so I heated up some leftovers in the microwave, right? So this is also the interest and desire is here, but also action. I mean, this example, action is the bulk of this particular brochure. There are all sorts of things you can do. So this is much more informative. Nothing on the back. So the design of this brochure is unique. I will say it doesn't follow a standard pattern for brochures, but what do I know? If I look at the certificate in sustainability, we have a similar dynamic, right? So we have a great picture of a couple of people engaged in conversation among some plants. I'm not going to shove this into the camera, but we've got right there. We've got our attention, certificate in sustainability. Notice how clean it is. I'm not often going to go into designy type discussion, but I believe that's part of writing. So I'd argue that that while it won't be the focus, there will definitely be elements there. So yeah, certificate of sustainability. The nice thing about this, and notice that this is bigger. So I think we're looking at 8.5 by 14, maybe a little bit longer. 8.5 by 17, maybe. It's a different paper size than I'm used to, but you got a little bit more real estate here to work with, right? We've got our attention. I do need to get that out of the camera. On the inside cover, it's like how am I developing interest? Be a part of the solution. Okay, certificate in sustainability. What exactly is EMBI? There's some more information here. Um, this tagline on the front cover: "Be inspired to make a difference." So again, this attention. Here is be a part of the solution. So it's almost asking this although it's not phrased as a question, there's a be inspired to make a difference. How? Right? I'm going to tell you how. Be part of the solution. Strengthen and connect academic programs. Bullet point 1, 2, 3, 4. Lots of partners on there. But then, okay, so you've got my interest. There's a lot going on here. But now we're going to encourage that desire. What I really want you to do as someone who, if I were from the Office of Sustainability and I wanted people to participate in this program, okay, now that I've got you here, you've got the brochure in your hands, and now you've taken that action. Well, I shouldn't use that term. Now you've opened up the brochure. Now I'm going to stoke that desire and get you to make a decision about whether you want to, and we'll get to what that might be in a moment. So here we have our certificate in sustainability. I've got a number of different pieces of information. I've got a testimonial, which is always good, excellent strategy. So we've got a testimonial. We've got a little bit about the campus itself, and then we've got a list of the courses. So for the certificate, it's telling me, okay, what are some of the questions that I would want to know that about this particular product? Well, for one thing, if I'm taking a certificate, if I'm pursuing a certificate, I want to know how long is it going to take me to accomplish this? How many courses is it going to take? So if you're pursuing another degree already, for example, maybe you wanted to take this as well. So students must take 4 courses from the following 3 elements with a minimum of 1 course per element. So I've got 3 elements, and I essentially have to take 4 courses, and I can choose. So that's actually not bad. For a certificate, 4 courses, that's fantastic. And then there's a 1 credit course, and then a co-op internship. So you're looking at 1, 2, 3, you go 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 credits. So not bad. And the way it's packaged here, it actually looks doable. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes plus a 1 credit course. That's not too bad at all. All right. So again, looking at the images here, I'm sorry that you can't see this, but there's images of all sorts of engagement. We've got people talking in a typical academic setting. We've got people talking and engaging one another out in the woods. And again, and we have activism on the background. So this can start to tell you the type of, it's not so much activism, it's just volunteering to clean up the area, I think. I'm not quite sure, but here we do have another testimonial on the back. So then we get to that final piece, initiating action, right? So what are some of when we're looking at a brochure, it's important to start to think, okay, what are we talking about with regards to action? What action do I want that person to take? Well, in the case of the Office of Sustainability, we're thinking about, well, I want you to inquire, come talk to us about this. So we've got our we've got some contact information for the school. We've got some contact information for the Environmental Management and Business Institute, EMBI. So there is actually a lot of information about that, and I'm not exactly sure what EMBI is. It must be part of the school itself, so this is fairly new to me. But again, it's gotten me to this point in this brochure where I've gone from interest to getting some more, got my attention. Now it's building my interest. Now I'm going to be making a decision, or it's encouraged, a level of desire that's going to actually prompt me to take action. And that would be either contacting someone about enrolling, or just looking for more information and seeing what is possible. So it's interesting with this, in the case of this stress one, the attention, and then on the inside cover, there is the little bit of a reversal here. It's got this feeling stressed, we can help, and then there's this, there's some action here. So for more, you can contact us to make an appointment with a counselor. This would be the next step. There are a bunch of actions in here as well, but I think these actions are laid out in a way to also encourage desire, right? And to build up to that decision. So that's how a brochure is essentially laid out, right? Let's see. So let's look at how a brochure is laid out to do this. Okay. And I'm going to pull over I've got the, so here is one thing I want to do. And this is why it's helpful to have the other camera here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. High tech. So here we have our brochure, right? We've got two. So we've got the inside, outside. Is it ridiculous trying to do this on a small webcam? Absolutely. We're going to do it anyway. All right, so for our purposes, this is the outside, right? So we've got, if I can watch it spring up. There we go. There we go. Now we're talking. All right, so we've got the outside here, right? And here is where this is actually the front cover. Okay. If I just to check, I'm going to make sure I got the front cover here. So this is actually where my attention is coming in. So I'm going to maybe put some some nice attractive images on there. Might pose a provocative question. On the inside, however, here is that inner flap here, the inner cover. So we've got this inner cover. So now that I've got that, now I'm going to stoke that desire. Oh, I think I've got this messed up. Let's see. I got your interest, right? So grabbing attention, stoking interest, and now what I'm going to do on the inside, this is all about the desire or decision, whichever you want to call it. So I've got all of this real estate here to accomplish that. So might have some pieces of information. I might have some attractive imagery. I'm going to have some information here telling you all of the things that you need to know. But I'm going to create this arc, a cohesive narrative across all three of them in those three pieces of information. So I'm going to build up all of that desire to get you to make a decision. And that decision is actually back on this outside cover, decision time. Right, so here is your A, I, D, A. All right, so if you pick up a brochure, you'll typically find the a clue as to what that decision is going to be, or that action, right? That action is going to be on that back cover. So if it's a couple phone numbers, some contact information, chances are that is what that desired action is going to be. Say, hey, give us a call. Are you feeling stressed? Things aren't going so well, or are you interested in this? Now that we've got you interested in this particular certificate or program, don't you feel like checking us out and seeing what we're all about? Okay. And so that's really all there is to a brochure. So how do we make one? All right, it's not that hard. It's only we're going to keep it simple. As soon as I can, this is one of the challenges. I could not find it. So one of the problems living in we're working on the Our Voices project in another class. So here we have the Our Voices brochure. We've got interest, colors, clean layout, looks good. About our voices, so this is giving us some information. Okay, now you've got, see, that's you're getting the interest building here. Now that I know a little bit about what this is about, now we're going to build the desire, making a decision, right? So what are we collecting? Okay, Our Voices is a archival project seeking to evoke and recall. Let's see if I can just use their words, because I can never adequately describe all that it is. Let's see. So it's an archival project, essentially, that is gathering artifacts and oral history interviews from members of the LGBTQIA community here in northeastern Wisconsin. So here we have information about what we collect. You can donate, you can contribute personal stories, right? So there's this, and then on all of that, so what we collect, we're looking for memorabilia, brochures, zines, posters, or you can donate to the project, or you can contribute stories, right? Well, it's probably not a surprise that the action that they want, that they would like us to take, is to contact them. Do you have any sort of materials that you would like to contribute? Would you like to speak to, contribute to to the oral history component? Would you like to donate? All of this leads us right to here, this contact information. So let's go ahead and sheet of paper here. All right, so the first thing I would do with a brochure before you open up our dear brochure template, my suggestion to all of my students has always been to create a mock-up first. Get a sense of what you want it to look like before you start creating it, a digital version. Reason is it's just helpful. It's a little bit faster to do this using using pen and paper. You can sketch out some ideas, get a sense of what you're looking for. So I'm going to put my title here. I'm going to put a subtitle. I've got an image, and it's going to keep it simple. Maybe I'll have like the logo here or something. So I've got like a mock-up of the cover. But this is also going to help me keep in mind how this is laid out. Your template may or may not have this listed. I think if I open up a Word template for this, it will not have any indicators of what that is. So if I open this, I've got the inner cover now, and it's just, I might say inner, and then this is where I'm going to put the description of whatever the project is. I'm going to talk about it. Probably not going to use a wall of text. I'm going to keep it clean. I'm going to keep it very brief. Might throw another image in there. But it's really all about, okay, now that I've got your attention, again, we're going to start generating and building interest. And then, so I've got that. And now on the inside cover, this is where, you would spend a little bit more time. Okay, how am I going to lay this out? I've got some images here. I've got some, and this is where we start to think more about the professional writing component, right? Because when we're talking about professional writing, we're looking for clear, concise information that's delivered effectively. So what we're going to be doing in this mock-up is making sure that we're doing precisely that. So we can't have walls of text. We can't have distracting imagery. It has to be effective. So again, just like drafting any sort of, excuse me, any sort of piece of writing, it should be done in a way that is um, responsive to the format or genre that you're writing. In this case, it's a brochure. So one of the constraints I'm going to run into, and I have to be mindful of ahead of time, is how short that writing has to be. So here we have in the sustainability example, the what's really well laid out is the list of courses. It works nicely. I would argue, however, that some pieces don't really use the space as well as it could, like these testimonials that take up an entire panel with a chunk of information below it. This is not a critique of the design. It's just something that if I were to be giving suggestions to someone putting together a brochure, this is how I would respond. Here's an even better example of the way this information is broken down. We've got a heading. We've got, the title up here, the bar that goes across the two panels. We've got a heading, a subheading, some information, bulleted list, another subheading, more information. Okay, so this is all broken down. Notice that the bulleted lists are not complete sentences. They're just, you can't see it, but will not delay graduation. Not complete sentences, but just short sound bites of information. So our writing has to be tailored to this. Now, this particular one is a little bit wider, so they have more real estate to work with. This one, on the other hand, is much narrower. So the information should be a little bit shorter. Feeling stressed? We can help. That's it. I mean, there's just those two pieces of information. To make appointment with a counselor, followed by this sticker with the contact information on there, followed by more contact information. So it's designed. One of the challenges that I often run into is that we'll take a large chunk of information that we're trying to get, and it'll just get copy and pasted into that brochure, and then you end up getting these 3 columns of nothing but text because there's been no editing. Well, you have to edit it down. Again, you want highlights, not necessarily, so for example, any of these brochures where the action is to contact them for more information or contact them for their services, that's the big ask, right? So you're really focusing on giving just enough information to get them. Too much information is going to be what we would call in the digital world a kick out, right? Or maybe they probably don't call it that anymore. So if you were on a website and kick out would be any sort of reason that would prompt the user to leave the site. Same goes for brochures. Whatever the paper version of a kick out is, if we have too much text in a brochure, the whole idea is that you can get through a brochure relatively quickly. It's not something that I'm going to take on an airplane and read for 4 hours, right? So you don't want a wall of text. You want to, again, always be generating interest in those inside panels. And then when you get to, let's go ahead. It would be probably a lot easier if I just went ahead and opened up my Word file. Excuse me. I'm done with the PowerPoint. So if you're watching this, thank you for stopping by and checking this out. Let's go ahead. You know what? I'm going to be crazy and just start a whole new one. All right, so I've got this out. Assuming you're not using InDesign or anything like that, more, Word is good for all sorts of things. There's also plenty of services online. As I tell students often, though, whenever you use an online template for something like a brochure or a resume, you're gonna you I find that students tend to be more restricted by the template than they need to be. So I would encourage you, unless you're in a design, especially if you're in a design class where your original design is called for, I would be, unless you need something very quickly and you have a lot of your material and you're flexible, a template is fine. But I would seriously encourage anyone to use their own. So let's go to, well, first this is, to say, obviously, Office 365. And I'm going to go over to Layout, Orientation, Landscape, and I'm just sticking with the default of um, trifold brochure here. I use 3 columns here. Throw on some margins in here so I have those as well. So you can see, excuse me, I've got the columns up here indicated in the tabs bar. I'm not exactly sure. I think there's a way of viewing. See if it'll. Oh, do not want that. Column layout, column width, default. Deletion pane. This is new. Oops. Fortunate. All right, edit document. That's the key. All right. One of the Word has changed so much in my uh, lifetime. It's very hard to remember. And I just did it again somehow. I really want to just keep this up. Okay. I want the grid line. No. So I'm trying to do, so again, I'm used to using another tool for this called InDesign, and I don't seem to, if I can't remember the way to add the column guides to this. Let's try, let's try some of the templates, see if they got. Got a trifold brochure. I'm going to show you what I mean real quick. So you've got these templates. Now the nice thing about templates is that they are vetted, they're tested. So the good folks at Microsoft have used them, and have probably, you know, other people have looked and given, a little quality control. Let's look at our architecture brochure. Let's go ahead and create it. And now what's going to happen? What's going to happen here is it's going to restrict what I can do, but it's going to give me all of the layout that I need. So it'll tell you, here's your front cover, and it doesn't really say what that front cover is, which is a problem. Oops. here's my, let's have this off to the side. Now, this is what I mean when you have a template, it'll give you an idea approximately of the type of information that they're looking for. I'm guessing this is the front cover. Yes, it is. Here we have a heading, one title for your story. Uh, but here's where we have this a lot of information, okay? And we see this a lot in brochures, and I would argue that this is where you want a few highlights and then put more information inside. Put more information on your online presence that you can direct people to, because that's, uh, in a lot of cases, that's really the gold standard, right? As long as you're driving traffic to something else, either whether it's an office or a website, um, you're almost always driving some sort of connection. So on the inside, on the back cover, we've got the contact information and then a quote, so a testimonial. And again, notice there's quite a difference. Well, no, on the back of this one, we also have a testimonial, right? On the inside, we've got another more breakdown. But what's going to happen here is, okay, so there's very little I can actually change. I can change the text. But there's all sorts of tabs and styles going on here that I may or may not want. Notice that when I remove that title, it goes way back up to the top here, so there's no actual text box within this blank field. It goes all the way to the top. So again, I am really reluctant to ever use templates. If you're ever taking one of my classes, for what it's worth, if you create something from scratch, you're going to get you're probably gonna I'll be able to support you a lot easier if you're not using a template, because it'll get all janky really fast. So let's forget that. Now this is the template that I give out to people. Right? So here we have the front cover, and I tell you, okay, this is attention. This is the back cover. Here's the action. This is where we start to ignore the fact that I'm changing this on the fly here. No one has ever called me out on that. What does that mean? Tension, interest, okay. A-I-D-A, right? So I've got the interest, then desire towards the end here. So again, it's just building up along the way, and then the action is in the back here. So I'm going to go ahead and tweak this. All right. So that's our template. Again, using the information, that the layout that I have. So for this mock-up that I produced on the fly here on this little live cast, I'm gonna put my title, and I'm going to even use the title style that's the default of Word, just because it's all right. I might change it. So if I want to use, like, let's do a extra bold, I'll go up here and I'm going to update the title. So every time I use the title, it's going to change that. I'm going to go to a subtitle here, add the subtitle, change this to Fira Sands, but just keep that like so. All right. So this is where we start to build our, let's go into, let's add an image, see what I got available. All right, it's good old standby flower picks. All right, so I'm going to add an image. I'll add a title. I've got my subtitle. Maybe I'll add a logo up there. So that's my front cover. Now here is where I'm going to add my wall of text for the sake of this mock-up, I'm going to add a little bit of create some gibberish to add in there. I'm using a lorem ipsum generator. So let's add that. I like to try to limit my font usage to 1, maybe 2, just to keep things simple. I'm going to bump this up. Not happy with that, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this in the middle like this. And eventually I would probably remove some of these boxes, but I will not, the outlines anyway, but I'm not going to worry about that now. There's this weird color on here that I do want to get rid of though. And whatever treatment was in there. So what I copied it from this site, and it adds a weird background to it, which is kind of frustrating. Let's try that again. Let's do another one, another site. All right, much better. The other way to do this, the easier way would have been, I'm going to go ahead and right click. I'm going to paste. I'm going to paste the keep text. Let go all the way back. Start from scratch. There. Okay. Bump up the size a little bit. Change the font size. Just make it a little bit more designerly, I guess. So I'm going to have that. This will be some, that's even a little bit more text than I would recommend adding. Just keep it like this. Okay, so there's my text box. Go ahead and add another image. These are great. Even though I teach writing primarily, I will always advocate for using images because as long as you're using some text to writing some to explain the connection, not just using an image randomly or arbitrarily. So here we're going to have our interest. So let's see if I can do 3 paragraphs. So you see what I've got here is all the text floating down to here. Now it should be again, I'm used to another tool in which it'll just automatically flow. That's not doing it. So let's just say I have like 3 sections of text. And add some, my heading. 1, right? Another image, maybe some bullet points. So I've got all this information that's happening here. And then I'm going to go back to the action. What's the action going to be? Well, if it's contact information, if you want someone to contact you, you would put that contact information. So maybe it's to volunteer, you would give more volunteer information. So all this is to say that the brochure, as commonplace and as arguably outdated, you could make an argument that the brochure is outdated, but nonetheless, you do have quite a number of uses for it. It's a great utility. It serves a very distinct purpose It's very practical. It fits in your wallet and fairly easy to design. There's a low, you know, bar of entry, and so if you are, why would you use a brochure? Maybe to advertise your wares. Let's say you are on the job market and you want to have maybe a pocket resume. Maybe not a trifold brochure that's a little bit might be not quite what you're looking for, but this is why we have business cards, right? Or and those have gotten a lot more sophisticated. You might use like a pocket sort of portfolio, something along these lines, where it might not be. It's makes it a little bit different. So if I were on the job market, say, and going over to one of our job fairs here on campus, I might get some of these printed out, take them with me. Now, if I were a recruiter and I've got a stack of resumes and applications to go through, something that's a little bit more designerly, it stands out. It's unique and it also shows effort and innovation. So yeah, very rarely would you consider a brochure to be innovative, but in certain situations it helps you stand out. So while these are, I mean, I would be willing to bet that a number of us have walked by this stress brochure. We've walked by the wellness center and never even noticed this. I mean, I found it only because I was hunting around campus looking for brochures for examples in class. Um, so there's a number of reasons to use it. Think about how you would use that, compared to, say, if to stick with the resume and application materials example. If I were to put this in, if this were my resume, like a small portfolio of work, all in here in one, easy to carry format, someone's going to walk away with this, or they could toss it too. But chances are they're going to walk away with this, and even tossing it away is more engagement than you're going to find in a lot of websites that will sit there and linger for years, potentially without anyone ever visiting it. Um, Engagement with websites is remarkably low. It's very easy to get distracted, very easy to put that information down. Don't forget about the trustworthiness. For whatever reason that still have to dig around a little bit, we still perceive print to be more trustworthy. So it's a viable genre of professional writing, and it's one that I'd argue is still valuable in some ways. But again, it also teaches us some of those principles about professional writing: short, clear, concise, well-crafted wording, images that are relevant and sort of contextualize or set a certain tone for the writing, generate interest. The other nice thing about the brochure is that it's very easy to apply any number of strategies to engage an audience. AIDA just being one of several that you could use to methodically lay out your strategy for, you know, getting it that readers' attention, stoking interest, building that into this sort of sense of desire, or to get them to a point where they're ready to make a decision. Excuse me, and then finally take that action. Give me a call. Let's set up an interview. Let's talk about this program that you're offering. I'm very interested, right? So I think that's it. I'm at time, 1 o'clock. I like to keep these about an hour, I think. 2 hours, I've tried them. It's very long for me to talk through these. At some point, the idea is to have, going to be doing more in the way of interaction, dialogue, taking questions from people. Um, that's if we ever get viewers. So until that point, however, I'm going to still be Chris Perzicki, assistant professor here at UWGB of English and Humanities. Again, thank you to CADL for the generous teaching enhancement grant to produce this live stream. We'll be on every week on Thursdays between noon and 1. If you have any questions about professional writing, if you'd like me to watch me demonstrate or talk through something, shoot me an email. My name is in the UWGB directory. Or if you're one of the unlucky ones that's in one of my classes, just hit me up after class, and I'll probably try to get you to watch this here live stream, maybe for extra credit. No promises though. All right, y'all. You have a great weekend. If you're watching this, it must be a recording, so thanks for taking time to check it out. Either